you are, how long you've been in real estate, and what you did before you got into real estate. And Simon, since I'm looking at you, you want to kick us off?
Okay, so hello everybody, thanks for coming today. My name is Simon Bradbury, and I'm originally from England. I moved out to the US in 1999, and I moved to Reno in 2001. I was a property manager from 03 to 08, and then I got into mining. So I was a miner, and I worked as an explosives technician at a mine just north of Winnemucca.
Can you share where you lived? Because I think this is actually one of the most fascinating things. That you came from England, and then you moved to beautiful Battle Mountain.
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, I had 3 years in Battle Mountain. My wife's work took us out there, so I got to experience rural Nevada.
Yeah, you did.
Which was beautiful, you know. I really enjoyed my time out there, but I wasn't quite ready for the pace of life, which was, you know, one golf course.
I'm surprised. I didn't know they even had that.
Yes, 9 holes and you just go around. I'm not very good. It got old. But I moved back to Reno in 2014, and because I've got property management experience, I always wanted to do sales. So I started in 2014. So from mining to real estate was the...
Cool.
My name is Jordan Ames. I am originally from Bay Area in California, born and raised in Redwood City, and I moved out to Northern Nevada in end of 2012. I used to do executive security, and I had a client that had a property up at the lake, and I had an opportunity to move up here. So I was working in San Francisco. I got the heck out of there, came here. I did that for about 3.5 years, including my time in San Francisco. And then I got into real estate, got my license October 2014. I was very fortunate with the job that I had. I was able to do a lot of my own personal work at work. And so I was able to study for the test while I was working full time. And then after I got my license, was dead of winter, and not a lot of business happens at that time, so I stayed full time with it. And then on my days off, I was in Keller Williams going to classes and trying to learn and kind of get the ball rolling. And then I made the jump January of 2015 full time, quit my other job. Didn't know anybody here because, like I said, that job that I had, I was up at the lake. I worked 12-hour shifts. I was commuting an hour each way, and I just knew I could not do that forever. And so I didn't really have much of a personal life and didn't really have much of a sphere out here. Luckily, my now wife, she worked at Microsoft at the time, and my first transaction, which I know we'll get into that, was from her sphere essentially, and so I was fortunate with that. And so 3 years coming up, and haven't looked back. I'm very happy I made the jump.
So you got married to gain a sphere.
Exactly. That's not public, right?
No, it's private. Ginger, that's private. Ginger,
that was an option. So I'm Ginger Marphis, for those of you who don't know me. I came to Reno back in 2000 with my husband and just kind of fell into the dental field. So I was a office manager for different dental offices in the area over the first 15 years of my life here in Reno. And was never my idea to stay in the dental field. I've been investing in real estate for a really long time, and I feel like things happen in threes. I don't know if anyone thinks like that, but it's kind of this weird thing. So if I'm told something three times, or if I see something 3 times, if there's something to it, like someone's trying to tell me something. And so I had 3 different people tell me.
We know your secret now.
So I had 3 different people tell me that I should get licensed. And the first person that told me, I was offended. I truly was. I was like, what did I do? What about me looks like a real estate agent? And then the next 2 times I was like, okay, well, I'm going to check this out. And went to the longest class you could take through TMCC. Love Ben Shively, or Scheibel, however you pronounce his last name. Love him. Plethora of knowledge. And he actually was key in me, helping me overcome some of my own objections of getting licensed. And then I waited a year after that.
So you guys have all been in real estate for a few years. What is the thing that you were so focused on in your first year that you've now kind of come to know was not very important? I might just have sprung that question on you.
Out of order, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the stuff that I think, and it's pretty common, is you're wanting, your website to be dialed in and your online profiles, and you're getting ready to get going, and you want to make sure everything's perfect. In 3 years, I don't think I've ever gotten a lead just strictly from my website being awesome or anything like that. Like, somebody might stumble across it because of a listing you have or something like that. And then also worried about like marketing pieces, oh, my flyers have got to look phenomenal, and people don't really care. If you can carry on a conversation and sound professional, that's going to get you the business, not because you spent an hour working on this flyer that probably ended up in the trash. So those are the things that I worked on a lot. My business cards had to look all flashy, and I went through like 3 different ones the first year. So that's some of the stuff I would say, don't worry about it too much.
One of the things you had said to me before was about your phone number.
Yeah. So I came from California. I've still got my 650 area code. And my first probably 9 months to a year, I used that phone number, and I got into cold calling. I had it on my magnet, on my signs and everything. And I don't know why I was so naive to think that it wouldn't matter that much, but I would be cold calling, and the first half of every conversation was, "Oh, are you in California?" "No, I'm not. I'm in Reno, this and this." And so that got really old really quick, and it didn't project very well to people because it made me seem like I was either new to the area or, I'm not a local and they don't want to work with me. So I definitely recommend getting a 775 local number.
How about you, Simon?
That's funny, I was giggling because I had the same thing. I had a Battle Mountain number. So people would say, "You call her Battle Mountain," plus with the English accent.
They're like, "You're
Sorry,
a
confused.
fraud."
I had to get that addressed also. It took me back. One of the things I used to worry about in the beginning that I don't think is important is how much experience you have. I can't recall ever being asked how many times I had to take the test, the real estate test. Not once. And I'm struggling this month to think of when I was ever asked how much experience do I have. I mean, that might come up, and I think you can prepare for that if, if I'm working with a great team, or I have a mentor that can help me, things like that. But I used to worry about, I'm never going to get a listing appointment because I haven't sold in this area. If you've run the comps and you're, like you said, confident and competent with your presentation, that transfer of trust will happen, and you can just carry on. Just carry on. Don't get caught up in what you have or haven't done. It's a personal experience for people that are across the table from you, so make it about them. And as you gain experience, you'll be able to pull upon things that have happened to you in the past that you can bring into a listing presentation that's applicable to that situation. So, but don't worry about what you have or haven't done. Just do it, and then you'll just flow. But go prepared. That's what they want to know, is, are you prepared?
So how often did you run into people in your first year going, "How many homes have you sold?" or nobody?
They're not interested.
Yeah.
It's about right now.
Right.
I think I had one person my first year asked,
Yeah.
and there's scripts for it. So
Yeah. I actually, just side note, I think it was my 3rd or 4th year. By that time, it was probably near 75 homes. And I showed up and I looked young. And so somebody's like, "Is this your first house you've ever sold?" And I totally played it off like it was. And I couldn't get the lockbox open. And so we just made it a joke. Like, "This is my first house. Like, thank you guys for helping me out." I think I added levity to it so that it didn't become like they can't trust me. How about you, Ginger?
Smart. It's along the same lines, worrying about the small details. I've learned just recently, probably within the last 2 months, that and I've heard it said, but there's clarity for me now. What you focus on is what you're going to get. So if you focus on those small details, great. You get a fancy business card, you get, cool little flashy things, but are you really getting the business? Are you getting the appointments that you need, and are you closing deals? So I think for me, that was huge for me. And I started doing open houses right away. And you don't know, you get excited and you're told, this is what I did when I first started. And I think open houses are great, especially when you first get started, because it's a great learning experience for you. But my first open houses, I think my first several, I was baking cookies, I was putting balloons through the entire neighborhood, they were all popping because the wind goes like this, and I mean, those things really don't matter. You get better as you go. But remember to focus on what your long-term goal is, and that's getting appointments. So if you're having open houses, make sure you're talking to people, asking questions, and getting an appointment. For some reason, I didn't figure that out on my first, 4 open houses. It was like, oh, yay, open houses. Oh, what am I supposed to be doing? Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be getting appointments to, sell houses. So that was my...
Do you do cookies anymore?
You know what? If I get cookies, I get them from the store. And the best ones are the peanut butter ones because of the smell.
So Ginger, what do you wish you knew in your first year that you know now?
What do I wish I knew? What lead gen means. It's so stupid because I'd be sitting there in every class, you need to learn to lead gen. And I'm like, okay, what the heck is lead gen? And it's such a simple concept. Gosh, you can Google it. I never thought of Googling it. What are some lead gen ideas? And I didn't realize when I was in open houses that I was actually lead generating. Like that. So I think for me is just having kind of clarity and knowing that there's multiple sources of lead generation, because my limited view was lead gen was getting on a phone for 3 hours and cold calling. And that's not the only way to lead gen. In fact, some of the most successful agents in the industry, not just Keller Williams, they have that within their business model, but it's one of 3 lead generation sources. It's not their top one either. So referrals are huge. So doing a good job from the very beginning. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. How about you, Jordan?
I got a little list here, so I'll try to be brief. Using a buyer brokerage agreement, I wish I would have been doing that from the very beginning. Would have saved me heartache and wasted time. Real quickly, a buyer's brokerage agreement is essentially a listing agreement with a buyer. So, and this is exactly what I tell them. I say, hey, this is a buyer's brokerage agreement. The simplest way to explain this is it's a loyalty agreement. That way I know that if I'm going to drop everything to go show you a home on a Sunday, you're not going to go to an open house that next weekend and write an offer with another agent. I just want to make sure we're on the same team here and we have expectations for each other. And since I started using that and became confident with it, I haven't had any issues. I tried using it once or twice my first year, and somebody kind of scoffed at it, and so I felt very insecure about it. But there were times where I would go show people houses, and after 4 or 5 times, they'd just go write an offer at an open house, or they would change their mind. And
sorry about that.
Yeah. So I think that's something that if you're confident and you can kind of get that script down, it's very good to use. And as long as you come across professional, they're not going to question it. They're going to think, oh, that's what a professional does.
What do you think changed with you, with how people are perceived? What you're just your script with them?
So scripts, and what I mean by scripts, if you've taken bold, like you have taken it. Scripts, it's a limiting belief that we all have of I don't want to sound scripted, that's not me. And it's really not about that. It's about knowing how to take a conversation to where you want it to go and kind of internalizing it and making it your own. It doesn't sound scripted when you're talking to people. It doesn't sound scripted when you're on the phone. But it's just being confident and able to know where you want that conversation to go with people, and having the ability to handle any of their objections. So they say, oh, well, I'm not sure if I want to work with just agent. Just asking questions, well, why? Find out what's wrong, with the situation that they're not willing to do that. And what I tell people too is I say, hey, this isn't to trap you in anything. If you feel like I'm not delivering on what I promised, I will tear this up. That's not what this is for. It's just, and realistically, it would be very hard to enforce it, to take them to court. It wouldn't be worth it or anything like that. It's more of just getting them to put their name on it and sign it, and they'll more than likely honor it because most people, I think, are good. So
Can I answer that? For me, it was mindset. So it was in my head that they were going to have a problem signing this and committing to me. It was me. Ever since I got over that, everyone signs up for me. And if they don't, which I haven't had that happen yet, I'm sure it will happen at some point. Someone says, oh, I don't sign anything, I don't do that. Like, okay, well, great, let me know when you change your mind and you want to be committed the same way I am to you. Kind of that same, I love what you said, I'm gonna play that back. But a lot of this business is mindset. If you can get over those limiting beliefs, for me at least, it was me, it was all me. And so I was afraid, I was like, oh my gosh, they're not gonna want to sign this, they're not gonna want to commit to me. Well, screw that, you're going on your weekend to show them a house, they need to be committed to you, so your time is valuable.
One more thing on it before I forget. So when I say use the buyer's brokerage, that doesn't mean you meet some online lead for the first time. You're like, you got to sign this before I do anything with you. If it's somebody I've just met, I'll go and show them a house or two and try and build that relationship. And I just tell them, hey, if we're going to continue this going forward, I need this to feel comfortable working with you and so you feel comfortable working with me, something like that. So, and I didn't do that in the beginning. I was like, oh, I've got to use a buyer's brokerage agreement. So in that first appointment, they don't know me. They've just sat down with me and I'm pushing that in front of them. And so that was part of it too.
Well, and you were pushing in front of them and you weren't confident about it either.
Yeah.
So you're almost like
It comes
shaking
across like
as
that.
you're pushing it over. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. If you don't believe that you should be using it or that you have the right to ask them, they're not going to feel comfortable signing it. So that's that one. One that I wish I started out doing was giving clients options that fit my schedule. When you're starting out, you're like, I'm going to be that 24/7 agent. I'm going to bend to every whim and request that they make. When realistically, if you say, hey, you pull up your schedule before you say, I've got some availability today after 3 o'clock. I mean, 9 out of 10 times they're like, okay, can we do 4 o'clock? Yeah, great. Whereas if you say, hey, what time do you want to go see it? They're for sure going to pick that time. You've already got blocked off to do your lead gen or to do something else. So protect your time, give them the options. And if for some reason it doesn't work, then you can kind of bend to it, but try and protect your schedule out of the gate because that'll come back to pay big dividends. I would get just an unbranded domain name and people change brokerages. I don't plan on leaving Keller Williams, but it's nice to have something that's not, just branded to one company because if you do leave, you're going to lose all that SEO, which is search engine optimization. Setting expectations with clients as far as my hours. I tell them, hey, I try to have a normal life. That being said, my number one goal is, to find you a house or to sell your house. If it's something that needs to be addressed, I'll make the time. But at least that way they know it's not cool to call you and this is not kidding. I had somebody call me at 11 p.m. over something that could have been handled on the email. I didn't pick up, but if you don't set those expectations, people will rule your calendar.
Covered a lot of fences here.
what's Simon gonna say?
Yeah.
All right, Simon says go.
Okay. Well, it's a nice segue because what I was going to say was time management. Jordan sets his schedule up the way he wants, but I think if there was something I would do better at the beginning, my coach is here right now, she's on me about my time management is absolutely essential. When you first start out, I was the 24-hour agent, and I still am to some degree because I can't say no. Like I want to get out there and generate more and be available, but it takes its toll. So I need to be more structured with my time management. Just in the week as well, like role playing, script practicing, lead generating, following up with clients, following up from the open house on the weekend. All these tasks add up, and if you're not structured with your day, the phone will ring or emails will come through and you'll get pulled in different directions without question. So I think if I was going to start again, I would say have goals, but assign time. So it's you're clear on your goal, you set that time and you'll achieve it so you can move on to do other things. Because it's just so easy to be pulled in 12 different directions.
So how important is your guys' database? How do you stay in touch with it and how do you grow it? Who wants to take that one first?
I will.
Okay.
It's super important, very important, because I think word of mouth is worth its weight in gold. You can spend a ton of money on marketing, and I think when you hear of a good carpet cleaner or a good landscaper, you get that sense of it's coming from that person. Their value system you admire or you hold in high regard, so it's an easy decision for you to make. So when you're in touch with your sphere and not constantly, but enough that they always know what you're doing, and whether it's real estate related or not, there's that connection, and I think that in itself will outweigh what you spend on advertising dollars. I think personally.
Did you, Simon, in your first year, did you do the Zillow, Trulio, or did you do the buy leads thing? No, you didn't.
I still won't.
And you still don't. So then, how do you grow your business?
Open houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, open houses that's my focus for 2018. Having listings is awesome. You'll learn leads, listings, leverage. You'll adhere to that because it happens this year. My business has changed from 70-30, from 70 buyers to 30 listings. In my third year now, I'm now 50-50 with listings and buyers. And just in the last 6 weeks, I mean, you experienced it with me in the office. The phone will ring from people from California. Hey, I want to look at this condo. Hey, I want to look at this house. Yeah, and they've got cash. Yeah, serious. And it can be that quick. Honestly, I got a call on a Saturday. I met them on Monday. We were in contract Tuesday. All cash, no repairs, no appraisal. We're closing in 15 days. Just like they do it on the TV. It doesn't work like that, but it does. It did. It's happening right now. I hate that show. I used to love it, and I can't stand it. It's not that easy.
Yeah, you kind of like not love HGTV while you're in the business.
Yeah.
Jordan, how about you? Your database, how do you grow it?
So it's the foundation for any of our business. If you don't start building that database, you're not going to last, because you're going to either you might last, you're going to burn yourself out because you're constantly having to try to find new business. As far as staying in touch with it, so I do like a market report once a month, and that does really well for me. Every month I get probably 3 or 4 people that respond back to this canned email. It's set up, I send one email and it's got these input fields, so it puts their name, it looks like I'm writing to them. And people always respond. I always put in there something, hey, if you know somebody that's thinking of buying or thinking of selling, and I change it each month. And they say, oh, you got it, sure, sorry I haven't gotten back in touch with you, and they're responding like they think I wrote it. So it's very helpful, and it just is real quick. It goes over what the median price was, what the inventory is, and what the interest rates are. And it's just real quick snapshot, and people like that. They don't want to sit there and read through a 4-page newsletter. They don't care. Right. So that's the main way I stay in touch with it. Other ways.
Where do you get those numbers? So are you going national numbers, or are you
Reno Sparks? So I started using the numbers from Ken, but now we have a great resource available through the MLS. It's the
Market Insight.
Yeah, Market Insights, and you can do certain areas, and that's really helpful too, because I tell people, hey, this is for all of Reno Sparks. If you want more information on our neighborhood or your area, just shoot me an email or give me a call, and you can pull those numbers very specifically by areas and zip codes and all that stuff. So other ways I stay in touch with it, so social media. You got to have a good balance, because people will start to ignore you if it's all just real estate, real estate, real estate. I post just sold and just listed on Instagram, but I also try and put in their personal stuff. And whenever I see my friends from back home, they're like, man, you're killing it. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm killing it, but that's great. They're like, oh, I always see your stuff. So it's a way to kind of stay in front of them without constantly having to call them or text them and kind of what my limiting belief, annoy them with business. As far as how I grow it, referrals, cold calling. I used to do a lot of open houses. I need to get back into it. I did really well with them, but I also like my weekends, so it's kind of a tough, trading those off.
So when you're cold calling, who are you cold calling, and how are you doing it?
So I use Mojo dialing systems. It's a circle. I just circle prospect, and what that means is you basically find that if you're doing an open house, or you've got a home that you just listed or you just sold, it's just an excuse to call. I prefer having an excuse to call, because then it's not like, hey, just give me business. It's, hey, I helped your neighbor. There's a lot of interest in your area. Who do you know is looking to move in, or who's talking about moving? And it's just a much more natural conversation. I think people will respond to that better.
On your Facebook part, do you do that through your personal, or do you have your professional one, or do you kind of share?
So I started out doing more of the business, but as Facebook evolved and basically said, we're not going to show anything on your business profile without paying, I stopped posting as much on there. So my Instagram is really, I started that for business, and then I share it to my Facebook personal page. But I also kind of keep a mental track of like, all right, how much have I posted recently? Like, I don't want everything to just be business, business, business. So I do post on my regular one though.
Okay.
Do you post on your business and boost it?
Yes. So I have some ads that are running just constantly, and they're more of just like branding, and it's just real cheap, just trying to keep my picture in front of people.
Ginger, how about you?
So I kind of wrote it down just because, anyway. So I wrote, your database is your life source. You must feed it daily to stay alive. Don't starve your database. Grow it through lead generation. And what I mean by lead gen, now that I know what that is, networking events for me, big time. I have a meetup group that's for investors. And I do cold calling, and it's typically the circle prospecting. I don't just call random people. I'll either have a listing in that area, and my circle prospecting isn't just the cold calling. Door knocking's been fairly lucrative for me. When you have helped someone, a neighbor, someone they know, or something familiar, it's way easier to talk to people. People open up rather than, just getting that random cold call. So I have done FISBOs. They're not for the slight at heart. You got to have some thick skin and be really creative.
FISBO being for sale by owner.
For sale by owner. And so it's a skill set, and scripts practicing on that is really important. I've done expireds before, but the biggest source of my business has been my sphere. And like Jordan here, the minute I knew I was going to get licensed, I blasted it on Facebook. I posted things on Instagram. Hey, my license, that just stupid stuff. Nothing that was selling. I don't like to sell. I'm not a salesperson. I know. I'm a realtor, so I must be a salesperson, but it's just not my thing. But I made sure everyone within my sphere knew I was getting my license. So before my license even came, which it took freaking 9 weeks to come in, everyone else was getting them in 2. And I'm like, come on.
Is that background check, that criminal history?
It was, yeah, it was extensive. It had really. So as far as that goes, I highly recommend, if you're not on social media, get on it. I do post on my personal page. I don't care. I don't make it all about business, and I try to make it fun. So one of them, I posted a video. I said, watch me trip in this video. And I did. I tripped in an open house because I wasn't watching where I was going. So, you just got to be creative. And I've had friends I haven't seen since 8th grade call me and say, hey, my daughter's going to college at UNR and I want to buy her a house. Like, she wouldn't have known how to reach me or that I was even a realtor had it not been for Facebook. I had another gentleman call me. This was actually my first call. I saw you're getting your license in real estate. And I was like, yeah. Do I know you? And he's like, yeah, we know so-and-so. So I was dance partners with one of his best friends. And so he called him and said, hey, is she legit? Is she a good person? And he said, oh yeah, she's great. And so he ended up calling me and saying, I want to list my house. I'm not ready now, but would you come and tell me what I need to do on it? And we're friends now. So this is someone that I had never met. He was a friend of a friend. So let everyone know what you're doing. Don't be a secret agent. You don't get business that way.
What do you say to people who are nervous about, well, I don't want to work my sphere because they're my friends or my family and I don't want to look stupid?
And I think, and I'm not saying anything bad about scripts. Scripts practice is awesome because it gets you prepared. But I think sometimes people read the scripts for your sphere, and I was like, I'll never say that. Like that's just not natural for me. I always make sure, like when I'm in a social atmosphere, my stories are my business. So I'm like, oh my gosh, sorry I'm late. I had to open a door for my friend, because they're looking at buying this house and they wanted to see it a second time. So boom, they know I'm doing they know I'm a realtor. If they forgot, they remember. And it's just become natural for me. It's not me selling them. And I know that they ask you to ask for the referral. I've become really good at asking my my sphere of associates, meaning business owners, for referrals.
Simon, do you have a first piece of business story? Like your very first deal, do you remember that? What did you learn from it?
Oh yeah, brother-in-law from Elko buying a house in Reno for his kids to go to college in the Northwest. It took me 4 hours to write the offer because I was freaking out. Like, he's going to spend $165,000. I'm responsible. He's my family member. All that weight of responsibility. It was horrible. So from that, I would advise that you learn how to write an offer and learn how to present an offer and present to your boyfriend.
Was that the first time you'd ever looked at the offer?
No. I in training I'd written a couple, but when you're on the hot seat
It's different.
and it's serious,
Yeah.
it's a different feeling
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
For you guys it might be nothing, but for me it was important. It was a big deal. And the house had some settling issues, so but luckily he was an engineer, so he was kind of prepared for what needed to happen to the house. He was totally cool. I was freaking out.
So going through that that was your first piece of business was your family,
Mhm.
and going through that first deal,
Yeah,
beyond knowing the offer better
yeah.
and being able to present it, did you learn anything else from it?
Yeah, just the process. What's a title officer's role in this whole process? I knew that there were dates that I had to adhere to for inspections, and that was the first major point in the transaction. I knew we had to get inspections done and a list of repairs. So knowing the process, I baptism by fire. Like, okay, you gotta do this by then. Make sure it gets done. And then, what does escrow mean? So I'd meet with an escrow officer, and they would explain to you the process if you don't know, so you're prepared, so you don't have sleepless nights. What else? Yeah, there was no HOA. There was just inspections and then closing. What happens at closing? What can you prepare your client to come to the table with? ID, money. That's usually the first two, but they don't know what's happening.
Sure.
First-time home buyers, they have no clue, and they're looking to you for answers. So I think knowing the contract and knowing the process are two of the 101 things I would advise new agents to do, because I needed to do more of that.
Jordan, how about you? Your first deal?
So my first deal actually came first-time home buyer from Microsoft. I met him through my now wife, and he was first-time home buyer. He was like real easygoing, and we sat down, and I apparently didn't mess up enough, so he gave me the opportunity to work for him. And
Now, did he know it was your first deal?
yeah,
He did. Okay.
he did. So we were friends, and we still are friends, thankfully. But yeah, no, it was. I basically leveraged the office. I said, hey, this is my first deal, but I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I've got all these people behind me that can help. And I found out real quick that Ken is your best friend when you're starting out, because I was in his office like every other day, like, hey, this is what's going on. What do I need to do? And we use this inspector. I won't say any names. And he had expressed to me, oh, there's this issue underneath the foundation, but it's not a big deal. You just backfill with some pea gravel, call it good. Well, he goes to the buyer and he's like, yeah, there's this big gap under the foundation. And just left it at that. And I'm like, but you were saying what? Because he didn't know how to communicate to clients, the severity of things. And that's really important with an inspector, is that they're able to kind of relate to what the real world, issue is with that, and that it's not maybe the biggest deal, even though it sounds really bad, especially for a first-time home buyer. Your foundation is not something you want to hear. So it went pretty well. There was some hiccups. I'd learned don't put hot tubs into the contracts. Keep that out. That's personal property. So I learned a lot on this first one, and I've gotten referrals from them since. So well.
You didn't do too bad.
Yeah, my second one was a open house cash buyer.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
And they bought that house?
So what's crazy is I had already scheduled the open house, had done all my prospecting for it, went into contract. I'm like, crap. I'm like, oh, we'll hold it anyways. So, and most of the people were pretty upset when they got there and found out it was already in contract. Well, it fell out that Sunday, the day after. So I went back through my list, because I made sure to capture everyone's contact info, called them all. He's like, all right, let's put a cash offer in, and got it, and close it in like 20 days.
Nice.
How do you, when you have that person walking into the open house, how do you capture that info? What do you do?
I have a sign-in sheet, and I say, hey, the seller's request, everybody sign in, just so I can, they can see how today went. And I just kind of stand in front of them and not like, hold them there, but so that they kind of have to think twice about it. And then, I've got my stack of business cards there and the flyers, the information and stuff like that. And then if they write chicken scratch, I say, hey, I just want to make sure I got this right. Can you spell it out? And I make sure that I write it so I can, add it to my database later.
Do you do a dummy sign in? Like, do you sign in?
Nah,
No.
no,
Okay.
I'm not shady.
You're not shady, right?
I don't do it either.
What's
No.
a dummy?
Sorry.
Like if like you signed in and said
John's.
Like it looks like somebody's already
signed in, but it's yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've used if I had one sheet where there was 2 on there and I only had 2 sheets, I would use that one first. And
Sure.
so it looks like, there might have been some people who come in, but it wasn't purposeful.
Yeah.
Open houses, you got to be very purposeful with those. I've gone into open houses where other agents were holding them and they're just sitting there twiddling thumbs. They don't know anything about the house. They don't have any flyers. They can't answer any questions, and they just got a stack of business cards. Like somebody's going to walk in and say, "Thank God there's a realtor here." Now I know. So if you're going to do open houses, you've got to work them and actually try and capture their contact information and set appointments, like Ginger said. You cannot just sit in there. Nobody's going to walk in and and give you the business. You got to ask for it.
Right. When you say purposeful about that though, so you've got your sign-in sheet, your open house flyers.
I'm harassing them is basically
Yeah.
what that works out to.
Okay.
Very politely, but it's, hey, do you guys live in the area? So I ask them, do you guys already live in the area, just kind of seeing what's going on, or are you guys looking to purchase a home? Because then that tells me either A, they're a buyer, or B, they're possibly a seller and they're wanting to see what the prices are in the area. So I just have kind of questions in my head that I go through and how are you guys finding homes? Oh, we're on Zillow and this. Okay, they probably don't have an agent. Oh, you're working with an agent? And they say yes. I say, who is it? And if they can't come up with the name, so I'd rather them leave kind of annoyed that I was kind of asking so many questions than feel like, oh man, I let one get out the door that could have been a good buyer or seller.
Sure. Ginger being the open house queen, what do you do differently now? So you were doing the balloons and the cookies and
God.
baking and all that.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work already.
Candles.
No candles if you don't need them. You only put candles in a stinky house.
And don't make it smell so bad they think you're writing something.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
smells so strong.
Exactly. And houses, what was your question? I want to make sure I answer it.
So
What do I do
what do you do
differently?
differently than you did from your first open house to your open house now?
A lot. Like I said, I'm more purposeful. My goal, my mindset, my focus is to get information, get appointments, and get someone under escrow or into an escrow. Previously, I'm not sure I was knowing what I was supposed to do. I knew I was supposed to capture information. I knew I was supposed to call people, but I've developed systems now. So it's very systematic exactly what I do. There's no question. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. So, I go to an open house this day. I mean, I've done an open house and waited till Tuesday to make my calls, and they're like, oh, I already found somebody, sorry. Because they're going to a bunch of open houses. If they're at open house, they've met a bunch of realtors. And so you better stick out. You better be there, you better be, and then you better be in front of them right away. It depends on how busy I am. There's a few things that I do, I will try and text them. So if they've given me their phone number to share my app, right as soon as they leave the door, I have a preset text. Thank you for coming to the property at blah, blah, blah address. If you have any questions, or if you see a house while you're shopping that's not open to look at, give me a call, I'm done at 2, or something like that.
So you do that pretty much instantly after they leave the house?
It's helpful, yeah, it's helpful, and it's your information is right there. I've had people call me from that, and sometimes you're too busy to do it, but try not to be, which I suggest. Jim and I actually, we got our first piece of business together at an open house. If you're at the right house, with the right location, and you'll figure it out pretty quickly, which houses, which neighborhoods are the right ones to be at. You'll get a lot of people, and you will be too few to cover the people coming through. I don't know if you've ever paired up with anyone, Jordan, but I've found it to be helpful, especially in the beginning. I've learned from Jim, I've learned from Corinne, I've learned from a guy who's not here anymore, Willis, and I've gotten pieces from all of them to add to what I do for my open houses. So Jim's open house was like phenomenal. Before I got licensed, I went into his open house. A friend that I recruited with me, we went into a bunch of open houses while I was waiting for my 9 weeks to finally get licensed. And it was really cool to see, like what you said, people that are just sloughing off and not really doing anything. So I knew what I wasn't going to do. And then, Jim was totally prepared. He had all the comps, he knew the area, he knew about the southeast bypass that was coming through. He was super knowledgeable, and I was like, okay, that's what I need to do.
And no, I was selfish. I wanted all the business that I could get from an open house. But there's probably some open houses where there are too many people and you cannot talk to everybody. And you got to pick and choose them. You got 4 people in there, and you got to like try and stereotype, okay, who's the one that's probably going to be the buyer? And meanwhile, it could have been that other person who's looking up to 400,000 and you missed them. So.
And the one that's going to take up the most of your time already has a realtor.
Yeah.
And you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
What suggestions do you have for agents in their first year to gain that momentum or get that business? Jordan, second.
To get business.
Yeah.
Yeah, open houses. You can knock a lot of doors with something of value to say, hey, I'm an open house. Like Ginger said, I personally like that too. I don't cold call enough as I should. But having something of value to tell people about is beneficial for them and you. So come over. Let's just hang out. It's cheap, relatively cheap. You can put some flyers out and balloons and whatnot. And I actually have a lender that comes with me on open houses, and they shoulder some of that cost too, because they're in it to get referrals and refinances and new escrow, new loans and whatnot. So you can talk to your lender, talk to a couple lenders who you jive with, and they can turn up too. And it's good, especially it's a safety issue too. Mm-hmm. Especially if the house is occupied and you've got a ton of people in there and it's 2-story, you don't know what's going on upstairs. So.
Or basement.
Or basement, yeah.
So I'm a brand new agent. I don't have any listings. How do I do an open house? Where do I go? Who do I ask?
Everybody in this office.
It's great because you can pick and choose. I want to work in this part of town, so you just go on the MLS and you find out who's got the listings in that area. You find one that's less than a week old, and you say, hey, can I do an open house for you? And most agents that have been in the business for a while, they don't want to do open houses anymore. They love that people will hold them for them because they don't have to do it and miss time from their families. So it's easy to find them.
What do you guys find is the most effective way to get people to your open house?
So I run the open house ads and all that stuff, but 95% comes from the signs on the street.
Location. It's all about location. I blast the hell out of my social media, but that's primarily for my branding and to let other people know how busy I am, because perception is key. But to actually get people in the door is going to be from your signs, so your location.
If you're trying to maximize your return on your time, you want to try and be in those high volume areas, the high volume price points, especially newer. This might be a limiting belief, but if I'm doing $1 million listing and I've never done a piece of business, like they're probably going to be able to know that you're not experienced and you're probably not going to work with you. When I first started, I tried to be in those high first-time homebuyer areas because those are the people that are more likely to give you a chance if you don't have the experience.
And won't already know a realtor.
Yeah.
So what classes should agents attend?
Every class. Okay. So the question before was the one piece of advice is when I first started, I was like, okay, I got to lead gen. I got to be either lead gen appointments or in a class. So if I had downtime and I wasn't lead genning, and sometimes I would use class as an excuse not to lead gen.
Yeah, just a tag team on that. Anytime one of those agents on that top 30 is teaching a class, for sure take it. But I do have a list specifically if you guys are interested. Let's see, how much time do we have?
A minute.
So I've been to Mike Ferry's Superstar Retreat. I've been to Tony Robbins' UPW, Unleash the Power Within. They all do something different for you too. So Tony Robbins is more mindset. Mike Ferry was just do it. Gene Rivers, Agent Financials. that was eye-opening for me. Where should your money be going? You know, how much money should you be putting into marketing? How much money should you be putting into an assistant if you hire one? So that was helpful.
Taxes.
Taxes, huge. The one thing was another one. Language of sales is a MAPS group coaching. I love that. If you're going to be on the phone at all or talk to people at all, I mean, does this business require you to talk to people? It helped a lot building my confidence in knowing when to pause, when to accentuate certain things when you're talking. And like I said, any free class that a top agent is speaking, or if we have an outside speaker coming in. And I think the key as far as education goes is don't just immerse yourself in education. Take whatever you've learned and right away put it into action. Put it into action, because you're gonna forget. You're gonna constantly be taking classes here and there. But whatever you've learned, and what I do with my notebook, because I write I write all the notes from the class. But on that last page, I always flip to it, okay, this is an action item that I'm gonna take from this class. And I'll usually have 3 action items from every educational class I take, especially if it's a top agent, it's an outside agent, it's something, someone big that's coming in.
One important class I took the first year, which saved me a lot of money and headaches, was like a financials class. So, taking your check and breaking it down, making sure you put this aside for taxes, this towards, your marketing, like she talks about, then also your personal life. What are you putting into savings, investing, retiring and stuff? Because a lot of agents, they get that big check and they start spending it. And at the end of the year, you realize, oh crud, I got to pay 30% of what I made all year to, Uncle Sam. So if there's a financials class, I would definitely take that. It helps you grow your business and uses the MREA, which is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent model, and that just kind of breaks down how much you should be spending in each section of your business, which is important.
But talk to a CPA before you need to, because along the way you're gonna, I don't know how many of you have owned your own business? Okay, so those of you who don't, you need to have write-offs. So your CPA will help you with that. Say, how can I make this so my tax bill is less? And they will tell you.
Run your business lean that first year. I still run my business too lean. I should be spending more on lead gen and stuff like that. But door knock. Maybe don't get in cold calling first. You got to pay for that. Door knocking is, you've got more time than money when you first start out. So doing the activities that are less expensive. Don't start. You're gonna get 5 calls a day for from Realtor.com, Zillow, this lead gen, that lead gen. Don't start throwing your money at that. It's really low conversion. It sucks the life force out of you. It's just not fun. Start using the database in the very beginning, taking good notes, because I'm so busy now with so many leads and follow-up and everything. I could have talked to somebody last week and I'm like, I need to follow up. I can't even remember the name, let alone what we talked about. So use the database, set your next point of contact, because you will forget. Once you start getting business, you will forget. It's easy in the beginning. You're like, okay, I got to call, Joe next week and Frank the week after, because those are the only 2 people you're talking to.
You're just waiting for next week to happen.
Yeah,
So you can call.
you want to build like Gary Keller says, the 20-lane highway. You want to be ready to have a ton of business, and that starts with your database and taking good notes and making sure you're following up
Have a
people.
notebook that's like gold to you. So you have your, I don't know if you run around with like a solid notebook.
I have a notepad app on here, so when something pops in my head, I just write a quick note so I make sure I can follow up with it later.
Any final things you guys want to add?
Oh, respond promptly to your clients and be on time. I don't know why that's such a hard thing for people to do, but it's the most common complaint with realtors is that they don't communicate.
Or they're late.
Or they're late, which is mind-boggling because you're a professional and you're supposed to be on time. So just be on time, leave 5 minutes early. I'd rather sit in my car and listen to music for 5 minutes than be a minute late. Even if you don't have an answer, I always tell my clients, hey, I'll let you know I'm working on it. Because I hate when I send something to a realtor and I don't get a response for 2 days and it's like, did you get my email? Did you not get my email? Are you working on it? Just let people know what's going on.
Communication. Yeah.
I have a question. So for each of you agents, what was the most effective thing that you did for marketing your first year? I know that you ran lean, Jordan, so perhaps you were
Door
knocking, and of course it's free. And then what was your budget? Did you actually put together a budget, and did you meet the budget, or did you go way over?
I still don't use as good of a budget as I should. I ran a very lean. I printed out flyers and I door knocked and they did open houses because it was very inexpensive, and that's kind of how I ran my first year.
Find ways to do everything for free. Marketing doesn't have to be something you pay for. So partner with a lender. I have a lender that prints all my flyers for me no matter what I'm doing. And it's free advertisement for him. He thinks like I think. We think alike, so find someone that thinks like you.
Do as
Social
much
media
as,
is
yeah.
free.
Do as much as you can for free.
Free.
And
Your
There's
first
like
year, do it
Breakthrough
for free.
Broker is a resource that we have access to through some of the title companies, and they've got tons of content on there, flyers, and it's free.
How many are in your database? So if you have a really in-tune database, how many people are in that? Do you know?
About 900.
900 in your database. And how often are you touching those 900 people?
All monthly through that market report email.
Yeah.
But then I also set reminders, quarterly, or I use Top Producer and there's a market snapshot tool, which for all my sellers, I put them on there whether or not they ask for it or not. And that's just, it's another touch, and it's coming from contribution. That's the biggest thing. Going back to what you were talking about working your sphere, as long as you're coming from contribution, you're really trying to help them. Like you shouldn't feel weird, because if you don't help them, someone else will, and they might get stuck with a terrible agent who's not going to look out for their best interests. So just always try and provide value to people, and they'll appreciate it and stay in touch.
Have integrity.
Yeah, no one deal is worth your career. If you got to start over on a deal, and you got to wait another 3 months to get paid, that's better than having a negative review online or having a lawsuit or having to pay your E&O deductible. It's not worth it.
Anything else?
I would just say, do the thing you fear the most first. If you're uncomfortable, you're growing. That's good. If you're comfortable, that's cool. But are you getting any better? That was drilled into me from the beginning. What do you fear most? Attack that, because you'll get better. And then you'll feel good. And then you can concentrate on the other 10 things you've got to do that hour. So, yeah, do the thing you fear the most first.
That's good.
Mine is be coachable, be present, work smart, find a mentor, someone that you click with, partner with someone that's on the same level as you, and you guys can. Jim left the room, but him and I, when we did our first deal, I didn't realize how much I didn't know, but I knew what he didn't know, and we meshed really well in our first transaction. But find a mentor who can help you eliminate the bullshit you don't need to worry about. As new agents, we worry about such insignificant things. Focus on the results, the appointments, getting the deal. Create a map with your mentor and take massive action.
Okay. Good end. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.